There has been no shortage of unfair reporting about President Trump, biased reporting, sometimes inaccurate reporting about President Trump. I mean, I talk and write about this all the time, and it fits into this sort of ongoing war of words between the president and the press, where he is always using this phrase, fake news. But some people are taking that literally, and even though I understand that the credibility of the media is pretty much at an all-time low, and this is something that was happening well before Donald Trump was in the White House, but I think has accelerated during his presidency. Even I was rather stunned to see the results yesterday of a poll, a Morning Consult Politico poll, that touched on this question of media credibility. And the question was asked, do you believe that major news organizations fabricate stories about President Trump? And 46% said yes. 46% versus 37% who don't agree say the media just make stuff up. Not that they're wrong, not that they're reckless, not that they're biased, not that they're sensational. They just make it up. Now, I have a lot of experience in this area. I've written, dozens and dozens of stories about plagiarized or fabricated reporting. I was the person who disclosed, that this is now more than a decade ago, that Jason Blair was a serial fabricator at the New York Times, and that a foreign correspondent named Jack Kelly was doing the same thing at USA Today. So I know about fraudulent reporting, and I'm certainly not saying it doesn't exist, but it is rare. It is rare that a major news organization would just make stuff up, as opposed to all the other possible forms of journalistic malfeasance. But according to this poll, that tells me that the president's attacks on fake news, and sometimes he accuses these stories of being fiction, are really taking hold. That many people, 46%, have so little faith in the press, they think making stuff up. Now, there's a big partisan divide in this, so you drill down here, you see that 76% of Republicans in this particular poll say fabricated stories by major news organizations, 11% disagree. But when you get to the Democrats, only 20% think fabricated stories about Trump, 65% disagree. Independents, 44%, almost half, say there are fabricated stories about the president. Now, another survey, this has to do with a study from the Pew Research Center, says that in the first 100 days of the Trump presidency, 1 out of 6 stories had to do something to do with one or more of the president's tweets. That is so remarkable when you look at how he drives news coverage. 1 out of 6 are stories that he essentially has created, sometimes in 140 characters or less. And if you look further at this Pew report, it says that of those stories, they were more likely than other stories to have an overall negative assessment of either him or his administration. In other words, journalists trying to prove that the tweets are misleading or inaccurate or, polarizing, or you name it. Now, if you are a Trump detractor, you'll say, yeah, well, it's part of the media's job to do fact-checking against the president, who says a lot of things on Twitter. Sometimes they're not precisely true. If you are a big supporter of this president, you say this just shows how the media have become dedicated to countering just about everything the president says. That, I think, is at least within the realm of reasonable debate. But the making stuff up charge really bothers me as a journalist, because in the rare instances when it does happen, I mean, that's like a journalistic felony. People should lose their jobs. In fact, the editors of those papers I mentioned, New York Times, USA Today, did lose their jobs over allowing this to take place. So I think there's a lot of problems with the reporting on the president. I don't believe the stories are made up. They may be wrong. They may be sources, unnamed sources, taking potshots from behind a curtain of anonymity. Maybe they're misleading journalists. But the fact that so many people here, especially Republicans, believe that major news organizations are fabricating stories about the president shows what a deep problem the news business has in the Trump era.